It feels a lot like your soul is very peaceful. It's come here to experience a lot of peace. You're supposed to find peace even in the chaos. There are mirroring things in this life from that past life that you've come to heal with this person.
You're strong. I mean, you can even, pull yourself up without even having your feet touch anything.
I find that even in your current life right now, it's still important for you to use your voice.
What I'm getting is that you want a love that you can contribute to. You're asking for platinum, so you can't accept the copper when it shows up, even though it's pretty too.
You are being pushed outside your comfort zone to seek new heights.
And you are true to yourself and you're true to others around you as you live your authentic life. You are just you, and that is all you need to open up. We need you to speak your truth, Katrina.
So we are back with another episode in my past life series where I share readings that I've had about past life experiences with various people in my lives and how they've impacted my life and how it applies to this current life. So this episode, I'm scared. I don't like crying in public. And even though I'm in the mountains alone in a cabin with my dog and fish and snake, and nobody's here and no one who's living anyway can see me, there's going to be a lot of vulnerability, I feel like, in this episode. The next few episodes are going to be about past lives that I've had with my children. And I'm going to start with my oldest son. But before I get into that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about little details that I think you guys should know with respect to the past life readings and how they're done and how I prepare for these episodes, so that you can kind of get an idea of how authentic and how much information is kind of being cut away and how much is So basically I get these readings with Golden V. She is a clairvoyant psychic that I've worked with a lot. She has definitely been led to me to help me in so many different ways. With respect to getting through a lot of different things in my life, but she's a clairvoyant. So what that means is that she can see, she's clear seeing. So when she does past life readings, there's literally a movie in her line of sight. And she will often, when you get the reading, she often looks down into the side and she's just seeing a movie. Yes, I have tissue because I know I'm going to cry. It's fine. She'll see a movie. She'll see our past lives movie scenes, and then she's just saying what's happening in the movie scenes. She doesn't have any context about our current life. She doesn't know, psychics, we don't know everything, you guys. We literally just get glimpses and things that were shown specifically to be of service to whoever's in our orbit. So that's kind of how she gets her information. So when I'm sharing a reading that she does, I will go through and I'll cut the reading. So what that means to me is that I will there will be times where she'll see stuff and she'll be like, oh, wow. And she's watching the movie and getting ready to, so there's a lot of blank space where I'll go in and I'll edit that out so that the podcast isn't a bunch of blank spaces with, blank sound bites, whatever. Another thing that's really important to know, that as you go through a spiritual awakening, your soul knows exactly what you're ready to hear and what it would be too much. So you're never given more than you can handle. Also, they know when you're going to get a reading because they're actually the ones who orchestrate it. They're the ones that give you that subconscious, oh shit, this is cool. I just stumbled upon this podcast and this woman does past life readings. I'm going to book a reading, They're actually in our subconscious and they align these things. So they already know what they're going to talk about and they know that it applies to the present moment. And they will, in my experience, they'll prepare me in different ways. For example, in not this episode, but the next episode that I'm going to do, before I had the past life that I had with my son, we were both French thieves. And some things took place in that life. But before the reading, I was playing Skyrim for the very first time ever. And I was a thief. If you've ever played Skyrim, you go through the beginning parts, you're in the back of a wagon and you're being carried because you got caught being a thief. And, the thieves are getting decapitated. That applied to my past life. So spirit there will be a bunch of little things that will happen before the reading to where as you're getting the reading, you're connecting the dots. You're connecting dots throughout this reading, and any reading that I've ever shared. I'm being quiet because I'm listening, but I'm also connecting a bunch of dots, and like a lot of the things are making sense for me. So that's kind of what's going on internally. Now, I don't go as far as to share all of those insights with the reader because I have a limited amount of time with V. I got an hour or two, and I want everything that she's going to give me because I need to be able to. This is for my highest and greatest good. This is for my personal development, for my healing and stuff. And so it's not important to like tell the reader how it all applies. It's cool for them, because they're like, oh shit, like that really, but it's not necessary. They don't need to hear all that. It's for you. It's not for them. And they're just there to help you out. So you might read books. You may have life events that coincide with the past life. You may have memories of certain things. Like definitely there's certain, like as I'm hearing past life readings, and my daughter as well, like you'll know what's coming next. You'll know like how you ended up dead, or you'll know how you killed someone, or you'll just know certain things because we do have the memories that do reside within us. So and again, I just want to remind people that like when you get these readings, some of mine are very traumatic, like they're trigger warning. There's a lot of, and this particular episode that I'm going to go into today, which is why it's like so difficult and I'm afraid I'm going to cry a lot, is because, there's prostitution, and then there's like all these things that just are not super pleasant, and can be difficult. And the reason why it's like everything applies. Every word that she says, and every reading that I have had, and every reading that I've paid for for anyone else, because I gift readings a lot, every sentence applies to this present life. It's never just like, oh, you did this cool thing, whatever. It's like, no, you did this cool thing, and that's why this exists in this time space reality. With that, I kind of want to give a little background with regards to like, my son. I got pregnant this is my oldest son. His name is Anthony. And I got pregnant with him when I was 16 years old. My mother was a drug addict. She was kind of like out on the streets. My sisters were in foster care. And I ended up living with his father because my mom just, yeah. So obviously very soon, I would say like 3 or 4 months after we got together and I moved in, like I ended up pregnant. And his mother tried her best to get me to have an abortion. And at the time, because I was just so used to going through trauma and I just didn't want any confrontation, I agreed to have an abortion. So I remember booking this abortion. And every time I walked inside the bathroom, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I don't want to cry, but we have to get this out because it's relevant. Because I knew that if I had the abortion, I was going to kill myself. Not crying. So one way or another, I won't get into how, but basically like I went to go have the abortion. I was too far along, so they couldn't do it. They basically said I had to come back and have a 2-day abortion. They had to like induce labor. It was just, and so we were like, yeah, no, fuck that. Like we're going to have this baby. So I remember when he was born having this feeling of like, he saved me, because if I would have went through with the abortion, I wouldn't have lived. So anyway, the boy is born, and he's a fucking angel, like the most perfect child you can like ask for. I'm supposed to have a date tonight. Anyway, all right, get it together. All right, he just loved the fuck out of me. I'm like very much a hands-on mom. Like I'm very touchy-feely. I've bought like 3 cribs and my kids have never slept in cribs. My kids have always slept with me. And I remember this kid, he would choke me. Like he would like lay next to me and he would grip my neck so tight at night that I could barely fucking breathe. Like when we would drive in the car, I would have to drive with my hand in the back of the car and on his cheek, so that he wouldn't fuss. Like we always had to be touching. We had this like really, really, really strong connection. And I had this distinct memory of him when he was 4, where I had a pair of boots and I had a pair of high heels, and I put one on each foot, and I said, which shoe do you think I should wear? And he thought I should wear the high heels when I wanted to wear the boots. If you know anything about me, I have no sense of fucking fashion. Like that is not my deal. I don't care, just I do what feels good, and I don't give a fuck what the magazines or what's trending, or I don't pay attention to any of that shit. But my son gently tells me, no, Mom. He wraps his arm around me, gives me this nice little pat on the back. He's like, you can wear the boots later. Just like gentle, like just gentle. Like he knew how, first of all, he was very, very, very into fashion at an extremely young age. But he was just very gentle with me, and he loved me like so much. And just I just remember this energy of like feeling like he'd saved me. So yeah, also I feel like he saved me in another way, which is going to sound weird, but like as I grew up, I had really bad experiences with men to where it was like they're all trash, and you can't trust any of them, and everybody's a child molester or a rapist or what's the other thing? A womanizer, you know? Like his dad had actually told me when I was 16 that like no matter how beautiful I was, no man would ever want to just be with me. Like no, it's not how men were built. And I accepted that, and I built that into like my sexuality and like my belief system. You know, I just basically accepted that. And it wasn't until I think I was talking to my son, we were driving the car, I can't remember how old he was. It was probably within the last 5 years. He's 20, he'll be 23 in February. And I told him that, and I was like, you know, Anthony, like men are not designed. I'm telling this to a fucking man, right? I'm like, you know, men are not designed to like want to be with one woman. And he was like, I was like, your dad like told me that at a very young age. I say it with all this fucking, you know, false wisdom. And he looked at me like, what the fuck? And he was like, no, no, Mom, that is not true. He's like, I can't believe you believe that. I can't believe he told you, like, that is not true. And I was so taken aback because his energy was like, my son, like I said, he's very gentle with me. There's been very few times in his life where he's like risen in his energy toward me. But that was one of those moments because he needed me to understand that what I had believed was completely inaccurate. And he's like my hero when it comes to men. He's like my faith because I see the way he treats his girlfriend. He loves his girlfriend so fucking much. I feel like they've been together forever. Like it's funny, people be like, oh, how long have they been together? I'm like, forever. But they haven't, you know, but he's known her since high school, and they've had past lives together. They were married in Japan and past lives or whatever. And so he just has this like good dude energy. You know what I'm saying? Like he's loyal as fuck. He's kind, he's supportive. He's like everything that in this society we're taught doesn't exist, my son. So yeah, so that's just kind of like the foundationary stuff with regards to my son. Now I want to talk a little bit about my childhood and preparing for this past life reading. I grew up all over the place. We moved a lot. My mom, again, drug addict. My stepfather, who she married when I was young, I can't remember how old, he was in the military. So we were stationed in Hawaii for a while from either the 3rd or 4th grade to 8th grade. And we'd come back and forth to California every now and again, but our primary place during those years were in Hawaii. And while I was in Hawaii, I always had Japanese teachers. I was extremely drawn to Japanese culture. Like I still feel weird if I walk into people's houses and I don't take my shoes off. Just inexplicably, I've always loved Japanese culture. I learned the language. I'm not fluent, and when I was in elementary school, you know, I learned the language. I learned how to cook Japanese food. Like I'm extremely good at making fucking rice, like white rice and shit. Like, so whatever, all these little things. Now, all this interest in Japanese culture, for me, I attributed, you know, pre-spiritual awakening just from simply living in Hawaii. And there's a huge Japanese influence in Hawaii, you know. But then as I got older, I remember being in high school and I was sitting next to this girl. I was going to Cal High in Whittier. And I was sitting next to this girl who was just reading this book. And, you know, I looked at this book and I was like, oh, what are you reading? And she was like, oh, it's this book called Memoirs of a Geisha. And she was like telling me a little synopsis of this book. Well, I have to have this book. I have to have this fucking book for some reason. I get a hold of this book. And this book just like resonated with me so fucking deeply. I actually looked into studying to be a geisha. I wanted to go to Japan to learn how to be a geisha. Like it was like this thing. I knew that I couldn't because I'm Black, you know, and I knew that like Japanese are pretty serious about, you know, their culture or whatever from the research that I'd done. But like I was so fucking drawn to this. I read the book over and over and over again. It's my favorite book. I actually still have it, and it doesn't even have a cover on it because I've read it so many times. And when they made the movie, I was obviously devastated because it wasn't as good as the book. But like I say all that to say, like Japanese culture has had a huge just impact on my life. Like I love kimonos, but not the traditional ones. It's like I want to have a free version of that experience, if that makes any sense. Like, not all the obies and all that shit. Like, no, like just the silk, just the color, just the design, just the beauty, just the like luxuriousness of it. And also what really resonated with me of, about being a geisha was like preserving the culture and, the arts and stuff. I have this weird energy. Like when I dream of being like in my perfect dream marriage, like I'm constantly dressing. I'm doing like 5 outfit changes a fucking day, just like playing with my beauty and dancing and like just like performing constantly for my husband in some way, shape, or form, which sounds absolutely fucking nuts. But that's the way my brain works. When I like fall deeply for someone, I spend a lot of time, because I haven't fallen for anyone who's allowed me this space to do this, but like in my mind, I'm constantly singing to them, I'm constantly dancing for them. Like it's just this whole fucking energy, and I really feel like a lot of that comes from this life. So with that being said, I am going to also, I want to note that like she doesn't know, like, because you'll hear parts where she's like, I don't know where the fuck this is, and it's like, but it's funny, as she's talking, I already know. As soon as she said the, Asian lady with the whatever, like I know. So anyway, the way I'm going to do this one, like in the past, I have just listened to the whole past life reading, but I think with this one, as we go through, I'm going to pause and I'm going to like comment where I feel like commenting. That way it's not just pure, her talking or whatever. So let's get started. Or should I wait because that DoorDash is going to be delivered here? Yeah, I'm going to pause real quick. All right, let's get started.
The only life you've had with Anthony. It's definitely not the only life. I could explore more if you want. There's a few others. It feels like, oh, interesting. Do you mind if I go to another life with Anthony?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you feel like we should do more, let's just trust her.
So I'm
there's nothing I'm looking for specifically.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with Anthony. So I'm also seeing, it's like you're wearing, and I'm sure this is like either China or something, in those books or movies where the woman has the white face and she's like Chinese. I think it's Chinese. Mm-hmm. And it's
might
like
be Japanese
geishas.
Or Chinese. Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? I think they're called geishas. So it's like the white.
That's Japanese. It wouldn't surprise me either. Yeah.
Okay, it's Japanese then. Okay, so it's a Japanese lifetime, because I saw the white. You're the woman. You're wearing all the white and you're performing. That's what I see. You're wearing the white face, the painted, and you're performing. And it's almost like there's all these men everywhere. It almost feels like a brothel, honestly. It does. And it's like, I'm seeing all this. And by the way, this is Anthony's second lifetime in Japan, actually. He had one without you. This is his second. Yep. So his soul frequents there.
Both of us are really obsessed. I've been obsessed with Japanese culture since I was a kid. Him too. I didn't understand why for the life of me, but yeah. I'm not surprised Japan's
it makes
coming
sense.
up.
Yeah, because I remember, because I'm seeing spirits. It's like second. I think he spent a few. I think even more than just this. So that makes sense, because whatever reason, sometimes our souls like to revisit the same places, or if our soul thrives in certain areas. So highly recommend, you guys, if you haven't visited, highly recommend in this lifetime. I know it's expensive as fuck for the airline tickets, man. It is, especially going all the way to Japan. But if you guys ever make it out, I would suggest you and him do like mother-son, trip or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or even if he goes alone, whatever he wants to do, or whatever. But I think it would be, I don't know. I just think when your soul revisits a place that it really keeps coming back to, because for whatever reason, Anthony definitely came back here more than you to Japan. But I would say that it just feels like there's something there, energy-wise, that maybe, I don't know. I know you guys will make it there in this lifetime. I know it. But anyway, back to your face. I'm gonna get to you and Anthony. So your face, like I said, you're painted, you're like doing like a little like dance, like, and that's why I said it feels like a brothel, because there's a lot of men around. It feels like they're like it's like they're showing the word dollar signs, like they're trying to pay for you, like someone, like you're trying to impress someone or something. And it feels like, you look really beautiful. You're all done up and everything. And but as a personality, you were born, so as a child, I'm seeing you as like a teenager. This is your teenage years doing the face. But before that, I'm going to rewind here. You were already born beautiful, where it's like, your parents like, oh, she's beautiful. We're going to be able to, your parents were about usefulness. How can I use her? It was unfortunate, but that's just the way it was.
It's Asian culture, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, and that's So, and I don't know too much about it, so now it makes sense. Yeah, I saw the word usefulness, so it's like, how can we use her? So it was like, because you were really beautiful, you have beautiful traits, and you're like, okay, she has definitely the traits that a lot of rich men are looking for. So basically, they were like grooming you since you were a young age to like be prepared to be sold, or be prepared to make money, or whatever, or have different men pay certain money, or whatever. And so they were already like preparing for it.
Yeah, so this sucks. The reason why this sucks is because like the way that this echoed in this life was I remember when I was 13 or 14 years old, my mom was a mess growing up. Mom was a mess. And there was a gentleman in her life who would always be like, he would make comments like that. Like, men would pay a lot of money to like hang out with you. And, we could make a lot of money if you, just like how she said that, like and there's always been in this life, I've always had a fuck that energy, right? Like I can't even do, what's the word? It's like gold digging. There's just no part of me in this life that can be controlled with respect to my sexuality, my looks, a relationship with respect to money. Like when I walk away from relationships, I walk away with nothing. I don't give a fuck. I can start over, and just that feeling of like, I remember during the recession when all the fucking jobs had dried up, I remember I went to go try to work at a strip club. I was like, I'm cute. I can dance a little bit. Like, I should be able to do this. I should be able to provide for my family, because I had a huge aversion to ever getting on welfare, because my mother was she was on welfare, and I didn't like that shit. I didn't want to be a person who depended on the government. And that was like one of the few things that didn't really cease to exist during the recession. I remember I went to Deja Vu to apply, and I couldn't even get out of the fucking car. I couldn't get out of the car. I cried, sat in the fucking parking lot and cried. And I felt like shit, because I was like, I wasn't willing to do whatever it takes. You know how people like in rap songs and shit, they talk about doing what you got to do to feed your kids and all that shit? Not me. I would rather starve. And that's fucked up. Like, I felt like that was fucked up anyway. I beat myself up about that a lot, because I had this energy of like, well, I should be willing to do anything. And so what I did instead was I did, what did I do? I did webcam modeling, which is basically like porn, on the internet. And I did that for a very short time because it destroyed me. Like I started looking at the world and just looking at men as just like, I remember I had worked for a cigar lounge, and my boss at that cigar lounge was like a mentor to me. He really like taught me what it was to be a manager, and he really helped me like grow in that position and understand like what it meant to be in a managerial position and all that stuff. And so I remember once, we got away from that because the cigar lounge shut down during the recession. And I remember hanging out with him after I had done the webcam modeling thing. And he was like, Trina, he was like, you are a shell of yourself. Like it was devastating. So there's like no part. And then it's funny too, because like when I'm in relationships, like let's say I end up a relationship, it's like every fucking guy that I've ever broken up, I'm probably overstating this, but they'll try to like get back into my good graces by mentioning their financial situation. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I didn't care when I met you, and now I definitely don't care that I'm not with you anymore. Like that's not gonna pull me back. Money, I do not give a fuck about money. I really don't. Like I remember, this is embarrassing, but I remember one time I was seeing this guy, and I went over to his house, and he like opened up his garage door, and he had all this nice like cars and bikes and shit, and I'm just like, so, like what the fuck? I didn't come over here like. Why are you, like he probably was coming from space and thinking it was cool because it was fast or whatever. But for me, I'm just like, why are you trying to flex on me? Like, I don't give a fuck about your money. Like, that is the least interesting. And then there's been situations where like, oh my God, I remember I was at this dog show. This is just one example. But I remember I was at this dog show, like the pit bull dog shows or whatever. And I was walking through with my cousin, and dudes would just scream shit at me like, hey, I got a house for you here. And hey, I got a car from you. And hey, I'll take care of you. And if you want to talk to me, if you lead with money, that's the quickest way to just completely have me lose interest in you. I don't give a fuck about your money. For me, I feel like in this life, the flex or the like healing that has taken place is that I am in complete control of my sexuality, and I sleep with people that I want to sleep with because I want to sleep with them, not because there's any kind of dire need. And anytime I sell myself out or like the webcam thing or whatever, it destroys me. My soul is so on some fuck that shit. And as much as I like love like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, and you know how there's like rap and stuff in this day and age where people talk about like, you know, tricking, basically tricks or getting dues to pay for shit. I'm just not with that. I love the songs because I love the energy of being a hustler, but as far as trading my sexuality for material gain, it's just not, it's no aesthetic. I'm not doing that. So hearing all this just really made me understand why and I've beat myself up about it. I beat myself up like, why can't I be a simpler woman, right? Like, why can't I just be happy with a rich guy so I don't have to, because I've struggled financially growing up, you know, I've struggled financially in my adulthood. It's been a fucking a mountain climb, you know, to survive at certain times. And there's been a part of me that just like, you know what? I'll eat shit. I'm not selling myself. It's just, and so hearing this for me was just like, instead of having the energy of beating myself up about who I was, I understood that on a soul level, I know how fucking detrimental that shit can be. And I'm not doing that in this life.
Such a young age. And so that's why by the time you got to your teens, that's when older men, you would go out with them, have sex with them. You're basically, I guess you would call it like, you know, prostitute, but whatever, but like a high-end one. I mean, not like
Geisha,
it makes it better.
yeah.
As though that makes it any better. I love her because V doesn't understand this culture, but obviously she's telling me this, and this is something that I'm intimately familiar with, like because of all the research and things that I did in this life. But also I was inclined to do that because I had that history in a past life. So for her, she's trying to soften these blows, but for me, I have a complete understanding of what's going on here, like a complete understanding, you know.
Yeah.
But like a high-end one, you know. So and so you were just you made it to the point where you were getting the attention of like, they showed the word like whoever was in charge at that time. Like I saw an image of like a big mansion palace looking place, like it's very like a big temple / home. It's someone's temple and home, and it's overlooking the mountains. It looked really beautiful, and you got the attention of a very higher up person, and that's where I saw you. That's where it brought me to the image. The main, this is where all the drama unfolded, was at this temple / mansion place where you're dancing for them and everyone's like drinking, having a good time. And this is where Anthony comes in. Anthony was someone who was a part of the crowd. Anthony was just, I guess I would say, a random dude who was there. Now, what's interesting is I do see an image of, he's talking to you. After the performance, he's talking to you. You were assuming, okay, this is going to be some kind of sex thing, but he didn't ask for it. He genuinely just wanted to conversate with you, and just, he was really interested in the makeup that you used. That was really interesting. He was interested in the details. He was very detail oriented. So he was like, oh, that's a cool color. How did you get the paint to do it like that on your skin? And how does it cause it to break out? And it's like, he wanted to do business. Basically what he was a businessman, and he wanted to do, he was trying to find new paints or colors for women and other paints in a general sense. And so that's why he was literally asking you in a business sense. So it was weird for you to be approached just like, he had no sexual energy whatsoever towards you, like pure business, pure friendship. And so I see an image of both of you guys would meet in secret.
So this is super interesting. My son, he has been like always like so into fucking fashion, like, and I don't care about that stuff at all. So like as he was growing up, like in high school and stuff, like I thought he dressed so weird. He would take pants and he'd paint Japanese characters all over them. He would paint Japanese characters on his shoes, like just very, very, very like extremely into Japanese culture. He would watch anime. He would force me to watch anime, just very, very, very into it. And I remember like, it's funny because even though I wasn't drawn to it and I thought he looked weird as fuck, I remember one time when I got to his school, I was like, oh shit, this is how the kids dress these days. Because the way he dressed when I was growing up would be considered like, I would get made fun of, you know, for that. But for him, he was fucking styling. So, and I remember like telling him one time, like, look, you gotta do your thing no matter what anyone says, especially your parents, because all we know is what we were raised with, and that shit changes generationally. And so I've always tried to like be supportive of him, even though it's like the energy of being supportive, but like, I don't understand this shit, but you know, do your thing, man, do your fucking thing type energy. But yeah, I remember he got voted if I remember correctly, like best fashion in his yearbook. And he went to a big fucking school, and like everybody knew him for his fashion. He was always talking about clothing lines, and he's still into that to this fucking day. Like, and what's interesting also is that the girl that he's with, and you know, probably be with forever, they were married in a past life in Japan, and she was actually a kimono maker. Before I had the little awakening, she was talking about designing a lingerie line. I was like, bitch, if you design a line, I will be your model. Like, you know, and I wanted her to make me a fucking red kimono. I'm still on her about this red fucking kimono. Turns out she was a kimono maker in a past life. So it's funny, when I just had my 40th birthday, she messaged me. She's like, hey, you know, I love you. Happy birthday, blah, blah, blah. She's like, and you're going to get your kimono. So anyway, cute little side note.
Or I see an image of green tea. It's definitely green. I see green tea. And you guys would have your little teacups, and you guys would like sit, and you guys would watch the sunrise. So you guys would meet early in the mornings to watch the sunrise together and with your little teas. And it meant a lot to you that like someone saw you for just as a person, a human being, and not for what you're useful for.
Bruh. And that tea thing still exists in this life. I wake up in the morning, and 9 times out of 10, I end up having tea, specifically green tea with jasmine in it. I've actually been drinking a lot of matcha tea recently, where I literally have the traditional like bowl and the whisk and stuff like that, even though I got lazy when I moved to the place where I live now, because my fish tank, my general like, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the general like thing that I like to do in the morning is just I like to have peace. And so I'll make green tea, and I used to sit in front of my fish tank because my fish tank was at eye level, and I could sit on the floor, and the fish tank was on a coffee table to where it would be at eye level, and I'd make my tea, and I would sit there and I would just wash my fish and engage with my fish. My fish tank is full of like everything is living. There's no fake plants in there. You know, it's a whole ecosystem. There's a bunch of different live plants, and I feel like I've built this. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but like this part with the tea really fucking resonates is the point. Also, I just hung out with this Japanese guy, and in the morning times we would literally say he would make me tea, and we would eat breakfast, and I'm gonna get a past life reading on him because I know I've had a past life with him, but there's definitely me and the tea in this life is still a thing.
What you do, and oh, what can I please you? And Anthony was just very patient. He was very kind, very gentle. That's his personality. He was very quiet, but a businessman. He still, although he was a quiet, gentleman, he got a lot of work done. He had a lot of money. And basically, this actually, I know it sounds like an interesting, bad story, but it turned out really good. He ended up wanting to marry you because he wanted to say, like, you know what? You don't ever have to do anything ever again. I take care of you. You don't have to, you know, we can work on paints and stuff together. And so he literally did marry you. Your parents were really mad because they wanted someone with a little bit more money.
So just to cut in right there, that energy when he was born, that like, my dog is licking the fucking lapping of water. That energy when he was born of like, he saved me. Like, when she said that, I was crying so fucking hard trying to keep my shit together. Monty, come on, bruh. Yeah, anyway.
He had a decent amount of money, but your parents wanted a bigger what they call a dowry, I think, you know, place the payment for you. And they wanted something bigger. And so he ended up giving your parents, in addition to the money, like a cow or an ox or something like that. See, a cow and an ox. And so he basically did everything he could just to have you. And they accepted the ox and with the money. And it just felt like you guys lived a very great life together. It was very peaceful. He brought a lot of peace into your life. And because he had no expectations. He didn't care what you did. He was like, I don't want you to ever work again in your life. And so you never have to see these men ever again. We could just have our tea and relax. And it was a very peaceful life with him. He really took care of you. And it was hard for him to, even when he had to go out to work, because you guys became best friends, you guys were married, but it was a very close connection because he was different than the men. A lot of men at that time are very possessive over their wives, you know, especially in that culture, like you said. So they're very possessive and can't do shit. But he was very, like I said, he was different. He was gentle. And I also feel from like when I'm looking at the imagery, even when he had to leave for work, he always felt guilty, like, oh no, I have to leave her alone. He always felt bad for leaving you alone. He didn't, because he knew you didn't like to be alone. And so, another thing is you couldn't have kids. That's another thing. there was something with like you guys tried and tried and tried, but nothing. And so he felt you were very depressed about that. So he didn't want to leave you alone for long periods of time. And so he was just very gentle with you. And it was a fresh breath there, because him being kind to you made you realize, because you wrote off the world as being horrible and cruel because of all the men. But with him, it just changed everything for you. And you were able to live a very beautiful life. And also, you really loved, both of you loved the bonsai trees. You specifically really took care of it. You guys had so much, that was something you really did in your spare time. You loved yard work. You loved the landscaping and which plant's gonna go where and how am I gonna design this. So you really love design, and both of you equally had a shared interest in bonsais. He would go travel to different places in Japan and get specialized bonsais. And Spirit also shows me the word jasmine. He would get fresh jasmine and put it in like the teas and things or something. So he had something with fresh jasmine. It pops up the word jasmine. And it's like he really, both of you loved jasmine and would always use it in many different dishes, drinks, and you guys loved the smell of it. So that was really something you both shared together. And again, especially with bonsais, very specific. You would really go to different places and you would travel for looking for different paints and colors and bonsais. And so it was a very beautiful life, I would say. I would say it was a very, other than the start of your life with your parents, and you were like, and that's another thing you had to deal with, like abandoning your parents. And even though they treated you like shit, you still felt weirdly guilty for leaving them. And even though they treated you like shit. And so there was a part of you, that's why he felt like he didn't want to leave you alone, because he's like, oh my gosh, she's so emotional about not having kids and missing her parents, even though they were rude to her. And it was just so, it was a lot of emotions for you, but for you having a peaceful space is what helped you, release a lot of the pent up energy and emotions. So basically Spirit says no matter what you were going through, and even you could take it even in this life, whatever you're going through, as long as if you really have a peaceful setup around you, it really, really freaking helps, because you having a non-chaotic environment, you having plants, bonsais, jasmine trees, all this stuff around you, it really helped you out as far as like getting you out of like when you get depressed, because you had depression in that life. So really got you out of your depression by having peaceful surroundings, the vibrations. And as you know, like plants and things like that have have vibrations to it. And so it was just very important for you to be surrounded by that kind of setting. And again, he was such a gentle spirit. Both of you lived pretty old, and both of you again enjoyed the tea time and jasmine stuff with the tea. And you guys really had a very Zen life. And both of you also were practicing. I see an image of him meditating, like very like Buddha stuff. I see a Buddha statue. So it's like very like Zen Buddhist principles you guys lived by, and like that. That's why he was trying to teach you detachment. Oh my God, what are the odds? Detachment, So seems like that's a common freaking thing. Detachment or attachments. And, and if you think about even how Buddhists teach is about like not being attached, because attachment, I think they say attachment, their phrase that they use, attachment leads to suffering or something like that. Mm-hmm. So maybe, and it's like you guys really applied those teachings, and he was trying to help you with the Buddhist teaching. So it was a very interesting life. So just wanted to just say that Anthony, such a sweet soul. I mean, he's still a sweet soul even to this day. He still has a very similar energy of wanting to make sure mom's all right. I mean, you're his mom now, but I mean, in that life, he was still taking care of you, and he wasn't the most romantic guy, but like he took care of you on a very deep soul level.
That's so scary and explains so much. I won't go into all the ways that shit resonated, but I will say that I have a daughter named Jasmine, and he asked me for that daughter before she was born. So I think it's crazy as shit that we loved Jasmine, because we love Jasmine. When she hears this reading, she's gonna be like, oh my God. I'm like, I know.
Oh my God. Like seriously, like everything is truly connected. Like
it is.
The fact that he even, and Jasmine, the connection, and even like, and you know what? Maybe if you're ever bored, I don't know if they still have like jasmine tea. It'll be surprising what it would do.
They do.
Yeah, jasmine tea. Just throwing it out there might ignite some of the energy of the peacefulness.
The place I just got has a jasmine plant. I noticed that immediately. Jasmine is like, it's huge. That's so crazy.
Oh
Okay.
my goodness. Yeah, it all plays a role. And the same thing with like your interesting relationship with your parents in that life. It's like Anthony was like in that life was like, I don't get it. How are you still like feeling some kind of way when they were so horrible to you?
I still have that problem. Like, I still have that problem with the setting of the boundaries around the people who have done severe damage. So,
Wow,
okay.
these lifetimes is really like wow. It was really, really meant for you to like hear this shit today. Like seriously,
It really was.
it really makes sense.
And I felt bad too because I was drunk when I made the appointment. I was like, "You're gonna be like, Trina, you're just booking stuff to book stuff," but there's always something that comes out of it that is profound and makes me look at myself like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Just like in a different kind of way. But yeah, wow. Okay.
Man. So I want to start with the curse of beauty. It's funny throughout this entire, incarnation, this current incarnation, I've always felt like, I felt like I was an ugly duckling, but people would tell me when I was really young, like, Jesus, like, you're really beautiful. And I remember this one guy when I was 13, 14, told my mom, she's a virgin when she's 18. I'll take her virginity. Who the fuck says that to like a parent and the parent doesn't beat them in the face? But that kind of gives you a little bit of framework with respect to like, where my mom was at and the kind of, shit that I went through growing up. And when she talked about the peace and the plants and the bonsais, it's funny when I ran into somebody not too long ago. It was before I had this reading, and he had a petrified bonsai, and I'm like, really? Like, it's just kind of like, I don't want to say I lost a little bit of respect, but I'm like, where is I take a lot of solace in taking care of things. You know what I mean? My house there's plants everywhere. I actually don't give a fuck about the house that I live in at all. I'm not a big house girl. I don't like large spaces. I really prefer really, really, really small, intimate spaces and just having a lot of life around me. Especially when I got divorced and, my kids stay down the hill during the year, the motherly part of me that wanted to nurture things and take care of things really, really ached for like, something to take care of. And like, I found my solace in plants. Like there's plants all over the place here. Even in my fish tank, there's like, my fish tank is living. In my snake tank, I have living plants. Like that's really, really, really important to me. The fact that we couldn't have kids in that life and in this life, he literally asked me for a sister. And when we had that sister, we named her Jasmine. And it's funny too, because in this life I didn't want any girls, but Jasmine is so amazing, and I'm so grateful for my girls now. The reason why I didn't want girls is because my mother was white, and I grew up the oldest of 4 girls, and all of us were mixed, and she didn't know how to do hair. So I spent a huge part of my fucking childhood being a mom, and a big part of that was doing hair. So I actually didn't want to have children at all. And because I thought I was going to have to take care of my sisters because my mother was just, and I didn't want to have girls because I just wanted everyone to have fades. Like I just didn't want anyone, I didn't want to have to do hair and like, your fucking fingers bleed and it cuts you. And it's just a lot of fucking work. Definitely the echoing of the dynamics with the parents, it's like in this life, I feel definitely this energy of like my parents think I need to take care of them. I actually got into an argument with my biological father the other day because he's like, I didn't grow up with him in my life. I met him when I was 24, and I remember I would go through things in my life like domestic violence and just like, be moving around a lot and, having people trying to kill us because my mom had ripped him off and just like crazy shit where I would be like, dang, I wonder if my dad was here, like how he would feel about me going through this and what he would do. And when I finally met him when I was 24, it took this big ass hit because I realized in talking to him, he didn't really give a fuck about like what my life experience was. He was more concerned about me getting to know him. He wanted me to know how bad of a motherfucker he was and how this and this and that and all these, just like, and I was like, damn. And then he ended up 4 months after I met him going to jail for life. And so the other day our argument was basically like, he wants me to do this little shit. And I don't think that's a big deal. And, if you took the time to get to know me and like, bruh, I got a whole ass life. I'm fucking 40 years old. Like, you're not really interested in getting it. So anyway, it turned into this thing where I'm looking at him and I'm like, I haven't talked to my mom since March of this year. Because I just got tired of like when she would call me, it would just always be about her. And I got home from Idaho, and it was after the blizzard. My fucking gas was out. Half the electricity in my house was out. I had my kids over there. I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna like take care of my kids, you know, in this like this weather-induced ridiculous situation. And she calls me with an attitude like, "Oh, so you just got back from Idaho, huh? Must be nice to be able to." Yeah, bitch, I work my ass off. I can afford to go to fucking Idaho. And it was just like the last straw. I'm like, you know what? I'm so tired of this, because my parents in this life really don't give a fuck about showing up for me in any way, shape, or form. My parents in this life look to me to take care of them, and they completely do not see that. They completely have this sense of entitlement, like I just owe them whatever the fuck. And it is like, just this year, I'm getting to a place where I'm like, you know what? Fuck both of you guys. I love you guys to death. I love my parents deeply and dearly. That nothing will ever change that. But I have too many other things that I'm trying to do with my life to be spending so much of it, you know, over giving to you when there's really nothing in this for me. It's just aggravation. It's like, I even told my dad, I was like, dude, like hanging out with you, it's like going on a date with a guy who already figured out how he wants this to go and isn't really interested at all in getting to know me. He just wants to perpetuate whatever narrative is in his own mind, you know, and that's exhausting. And I'm at a point now where, like, you know, I've built my businesses, and I've been serviced. I've been of service to people who are actually grateful, who are actually like grateful for me, and I'm grateful for the way that I've like shown up in their lives, and I'm grateful for the impact that I've had. And like, you know, I've done a lot of great things for people. Like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but like I've had the blessing in this life, even though it hasn't been from my parents, to experience the energy of gratitude rather than the energy of expectance. And with my parents, there's this energy of, oh, Trina's going to handle it. She handles everything. It's just, she knows how to whatever. She's like, whatever. They just have this, and they don't really give a fuck about showing up in my experience in a meaningful way. It's just whatever the narrative is in their mind. And that's what I'm supposed to go with. And it sucks. Finally, the going back to the jasmine thing, I am very, very, very drawn to that scent. When I go places, especially in the springtime, I can smell it before I see it, and I know it, and I love it. Like the scent of fucking jasmine, it really does something for me. It makes me literally smile. In this life, the smallest things bring me joy. The smallest fucking things. Going for a walk in a botanical garden brings me so much joy. Like, you know, a lot of women will be like, oh, buy me a Gucci purse. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. Take me somewhere where the experience is pleasing to my senses. Like, take me somewhere where there's peace or where there's adrenaline. You know, the only perfume that I wear in this life, I've worn others, but like the only one I will actually buy is Hanae Mori, Hanae. I'm probably not saying that right. M-O-R-I. I'm probably not pronouncing it, you know, phonetically in the Japanese, because it's a Japanese designer. And her scent Butterfly, dude, it just has like, it smells like flowers and jasmine specifically, and it's just warm. I can taste it, which sounds so weird, but like, I don't know, man. I really, really, really love jasmine. So getting this reading for me, man, it just really plugged in and just made me make sense of a lot of things. And it kind of empowered me to, like, you know, not be so sad, because when I feel into this life, it's deep sadness. It's deep sadness to have to be with men that you don't want it, to not have any control, to not have parents that value you for who you are, to not be seen, to not be, that's like one of my biggest things now. If I connect with a guy and he's like already jumping the gun, you know, and wanting to like be real serious with me, or like have me meet his parents or whatever, but he hasn't taken the time to get to know me, it hurts me deeply. Like deeply, it fucks with me, and I can't like move forward in that space. It's like, you don't give a fuck about who I am. You see this face, you see the way I look, and you just are trying to plug me into whatever you're imagining me to be. Like, that was a really, really, really deep thing that like kind of punched me in the face, so to speak, with regards to like this reading and me understanding why I'm so put off by that in this life, like why I'm so offended and why I'm so not having that, you know. And I think that's why in relationships, like, it's not hard for me to find a man, you know, that would take care of me financially. It's not hard to find a man who would commit to me. It's not hard to do that, but to find a man who wants to know me and be proud of me for like who I am and not how I look. I hate crying. especially on camera. I could just make this a podcast episode I don't post, but I'm a visual person, so I'm always going to try to do both. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, that was the past life reading of my, past life in Japan as a prostitute, very beautiful prostitute. Thanks for listening, guys. Oh, also, if you guys want to get a past life reading with V, you can, connect with her through goldenv.com. She's fucking amazing, as you can see, as you can tell. I've had so many readings with this woman. She's the truth. It's goldenvee.com. Thanks so much for listening, guys.